No, thank you. Sleeping. Come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calagione. It's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning to everyone. Glad to be with you this morning. Special shout out to all of our listeners on our affiliates, especially ESPN New Hampshire. Glad you could be with us today. And, of course, everyone watching on Fight TV. And don't forget, you can get Fight TV on your handheld or your phone or whatever. You know, just download the app. Go to fight.tv. That's FITE.tv and slash Billy C. And you'll get the app for free forever. And you can watch this show and many others. So check it out, www.fight.tv slash Billy C. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check it out, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Fanfire, a new fantasy game that everybody's talking about. This is a great variation of fantasy sports fantasy games. Check out what I'm talking about. Go to firefan.com and use the code BillyCBoxing and get the game for free. Now, the best part of this is you download it for free, you play for free forever with the Billy C. Boxing code, but you get to win money. I mean, it's a win-win-win-win-win situation for you. Firefan.com / and use the code BillyCBoxing. Make life easy. Go to our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the Firefan banner, which is on the left-hand side. It will automatically set you up. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. Find out what we're talking about when we use the simulations and stuff. What a great game that is. You could download it by visiting our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and going to the Title Bout banner, which is on the left-hand side. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of it literally right now by going to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Don't forget, she fits right into the stocking. Yeah, it's a great stocking stuffer. Find out why we got a 5-star rating across the board. If you want a signed copy, just go to our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the book club section. Coming up a little bit later, we got Alex Perpali. We'll be talking about our blast from the past today, which features former world champion and Boxing Hall of Famer Jimmy Wild, and also Boxing Hall of Famer and New Jersey Boxing Commissioner Larry Hazzard will be giving us his thoughts on the fights this weekend. And speaking of Hall of Fame, Evander Holyfield gets inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame along with some other fighters we'll talk about, including Marco Antonio Barrera. And, it got me thinking, I was never a huge fan of Evander Holyfield, mainly because my guy was Mike Tyson during that era. But, when I think about Evander Holyfield, and I think about the style in which he fought and the heart and determination that he displayed, specifically his recuperative powers, never had I seen anything like it. I got to thinking, there'll never be another fighter that we get to follow and support like Evander Holyfield. That whole mindset is gone. We've been talking about safety first, and money, and what we see with fighters evolving. The fans have evolved, in terms of what they accept in this sport. And I've come to the realization that an Evander Holyfield will never exist again. I'm not saying that the athleticism and the talent may not be out there, but the heart and determination and that style will never happen again. And the reason is what has become of the sport of boxing. Joining me right now He's New Jersey Boxing Hall. Man, we got a lot of Hall of Fame connections here today. The New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame and Guinness Book of World Record holder, and my main man, Sal Rocky Senecola. Sal, what do you think? Are we ever going to see another Evander Holyfield?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. No. Hey, like I said, Bill, Evander Holyfield was a very, very special talent and fighter. And one of the things that I do appreciate about Evander, and I trained with Evander a couple times when he was with the Duva clan, and we all had a training camp up at the Great Gorge Resort, McAfee, New Jersey, and also he was in the Patterson gyms with us too. He had the determination and the heart, as you said, of a champion, and the recuperative powers to pick himself up, to sustain the punishment he would, and then get back into the fight because of his heart and his determination and his willingness to get hurt, to take shots, in order to overcome his opponent's arsenal and best him by hitting him with his own shots. Now, Evander is a very special fighter, and I am grateful that he's going to get in the Boxing Hall of Fame, his first year of eligibility. And I think he should. Very, very special fighter. Great fighter. Came into fight. Don't forget, Evander was a light heavyweight at best. And he trained, used nutritional supplements. He put on some pounds. And he had a camp around him and surrounded himself by winners. And that's why he had the psyche, had the ability, and had the training to be a winner. And great fighter. And Don Turner trained him too, one of my old trainers. So
I don't think we're ever going to see another guy like him. And the reason is because the warrior mentality, and he was clearly a warrior, is gone.
Warrior.
You mentioned about him moving up in weight. Something that people may not understand, because most of the fan base now seems to be a lot younger. But Evander Holyfield was the first fighter to utilize modern training techniques as he was bulking up. I remember watching him in the weight room working specific muscle like his shoulders and neck to beef up the right way to withstand the additional punching power from heavyweights as he was moving up. Even like you suggest, people forget he started out at light heavyweight when he moved up to cruiser. So he had put on that weight and strength the right way. And
nutritionally and everything else, he had trainers to do that, so he did it the right way. Yes,
but what I mean, he was using like technology, like the machines. Like before Evander, most of the fighters did the old school, chopping the wood, running in the work boots. The old style of boxing training that we always hear about. And Evander Holyfield pretty much changed that and was able to do a lot of his training inside the gym and work specific body parts, and it certainly worked for him. Also in the Hall of Fame for 2017, the babyface assassin, Marco Antonio Barrera. What a great fighter he was. His fights with Eric Morales and Manny Pacquiao. I'm real glad to see him in. And Johnny Tapia. Johnny Tapia was a crazy man outside the ring, and he was a good fighter inside the ring. I had the pleasure of meeting Johnny Tapia in New Mexico prior to his death, and was a real, I was shocked when he passed away because, he had come to grips with himself and seemed to be living a much cleaner and better life, and I'm glad he got in. Also, just to keep everybody up, trainer Johnny Lewis, boxing judge Jerry Roth, Steve Farhood, and Barry Tompkins, two current Showtime announcers, all got in. I've been noticing a lot of announcers getting into the Hall of Fame these years coming up. It just seems like they're running out of these great fighters, and I guess they got to go the other way. Eddie Booker in the old-timer category, and Jimmy Lennon Sr. Also got inducted. So that's what's going on there. We'll get back to that a little bit. I got some emails to read, but some other news I just wanted to get out there, Sal. Joseph Parker, Now, he's fighting Andy Ruiz Jr. this weekend. And if you recall, Bob Arum said that Andy Ruiz has the fastest hands as a heavyweight in boxing that he's ever seen.
I remember that. I didn't see it, but
we
I
laughed about that and laughed about that. And he said Andy Ruiz is going to give Parker all kinds of trouble, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess what? Top Rank signed Joseph Parker. So going into this fight with who Bob Arum says has got the fastest hands in boxing, and Andy Ruiz, who quite honestly
next to Joseph Parker now.
Well, I don't think that Andy Ruiz should even be in this fight, but nonetheless, he is, and now Top Rank has contracts with both fighters, Joseph Parker and Andy Ruiz. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. But let's get into the emails, Sal, because I got a couple of emails to read. We got a break coming up, so let's check out what the viewers and listeners have to say. First one this is from Jesse. He says, hey, Billy, should the Redskins pay Kirk Cousins a long-term contract, big money? I don't think so. He's not that good to get paid. I hear around $20 million a year. Look at Tony Romo, Cutler, Carson Palmer, all got injured, and they're not very good this year. And I don't think Cousins is that good. Kirk Cousins, I think he's better than you think. I think all these football players and athletes are getting paid a hell of a lot of money, Sal. I mean, $20 million a year, if that's what they're truly talking about. I know, some of the big names got it. I don't know. That's a hell of a lot of money. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. That's a hell of a lot of money. And, you got to, I understand paying for talent and everything else, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm always glad to see when top athletes get paid top dollars. But, I hope they earn it and sustain a level of success that they can validate that kind of money.
It always seems that when they get that money,
they spoil and they go rotten. And
they go rotten.
They never sustain the level. I think there was once upon a time a baseball player. Oh, I think he used to wear pinstripes for oh my gosh, are we talking about A-Rod? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. Let's get off this.
$200 million he got for and you look at that now, and that was only $10 million a year, basically.
Only, yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry, $20 million a year. What am I talking about? $20 million a year for his contract. He ended up with $20 million a year.
A year.
Wow,
$20 million a year.
Hey, but that's only $10 million after taxes. So I don't know how they. I don't know how they can live off.
And you probably got your agents. You got everybody else. It's not like boxing. 33 1/3 off the top to the manager. 10% off to the trainer. 33 1/3 to the manager. You got other things that trickle down. Oh, and let's pay taxes too. So a $10 million purse probably winds up being a $3.5 million in a boxer's pocket.
I still take it. And with all with all the hands in the pockets of the fighters,
the entourage.
They're lucky. They're lucky that after they get $1 million payday, they're lucky they're not owing money after.
Well, they usually do. That's how they get in trouble. I mean, look at poor Joe Louis. I know we're getting sidetracked. Joe Louis did so much for boxing, and he was just such a figurehead. And he even, when he was drafted into the military, he wore a smile, and he did what he did to entertain the troops and to fight and put on exhibitions and do this and that, and then Uncle Sam slaps him with a $200,000 whatever the IRS bill because he never paid back taxes on some fights.
You know what fights? The fights the government, our government went after him for the fights that he donated his purse for the war effort was what they went after him for, and they hounded him to the day he died. That's our government for you.
Do you understand?
Don't even get me started. I've talked about that so much in the past, and it's a travesty. It's a travesty what they did. And when I'll never forget the image of Joe Louis in his last public appearance. He was at a fight in Vegas. They're wheeling him in a wheelchair. He's got that cowboy hat on.
I remember he looked like a beaten man.
He was 66 years old. He looked like he was 90. You know,
He looked like he was 90.
Oh, God.
He's in a wheelchair, and the poor guy who brought so much to the sport of boxing was shunned and by Uncle Sam's. It just blows my mind how this guy could donate all those purses, do this, fought for the troops, did what he can do to put on exhibitions, and the government wanted to just nail him till he died.
Yeah, and they did.
They did.
Jesse says, who would be good candidates for the Oregon football team? Why is Houston University football being such a hot job now? I remember they were a joke every year. They did really well last year, and they started off pretty well this year. So the school had turned around their football program. So, yeah, it is a hot job because they do have some talent on that team. So a coach could move over there, Jess, and look good. And starting off with some positive ingredients to making Houston their football team a quality team for some time. So yeah, that's why it's a hot job. He says, I would like to see Julius Indongo versus Victor Postal, Ricky Burns, Amir Aman, or Delorme. Don't know much of his skills, but he's on a pretty good win streak versus pretty good opponents. Yeah, and he won. Big time this past weekend with a 40-second knockout. And, when you win those fights and you're catapulted into stardom, so to speak, or at least on the main stage, I agree. The big fights should follow. He says, what's your thoughts on Joe McKnight being shot on a apparent road rage incident and the killer being let go by police? Yeah, apparently they brought him in again, and he was charged with manslaughter. How they let him go... and Joe McKnight, of course, a former Jet player. He was only with the team 3 years, 2 of which he played, and 1 he was kind of injured for most of the year. But, road rage incident, got him shot and killed, which is a travesty. They get the guy who does it, then they let him go, claiming they didn't have enough evidence, and then to hear that it was, a manslaughter charge, which... I guess he didn't premeditate just going out and shooting somebody in a road rage situation, but... family, friends of Joe McKnight, I'm sure they're not too happy about that situation. And, hey, it's our system. What can I tell you? I feel terrible about it, and I feel that they didn't do the right thing. Same thing with Brown, the fighter, the young fighter out of Chicago, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, taking 8 shots, 1 in the head from a drive-by, random shooting. I mean, this world is... This world's getting knocked out pretty quickly, Sal.
No pun intended, but you're
right. It's staggered. It's against the ropes.
Staggered.
Hey, listen, let's take a short
break. On the heels.
Let's take a short break. When I come back, I got some more emails to read, and we will move this right along. So
absolutely. Yo, Adrian, let's do it now.
We'll be back in 2.
The Billy C. Morning Show will be right back.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell them Billy C sent ya.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now, back to the Billy C Morning Show. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to the Billy C Morning Show. Special shout out to all of our viewers on Fight TV. Don't forget you can get the app right now by just going to fight.tv. That's FITE.tv and /Billy C. And you get it for free. So, hey, we love to give stuff away. I'm here with Sal Rocky Senacola. We're reading some emails from the listeners. This one is from your buddy Raheem. And the subject matter is Fitzpatrick. Let's see what he's got to say about that bum. He says, Billy C., it's Raheem. My Bears could use a quarterback. I like Fitzpatrick. He had an amazing 2015 season last year, but this year the Jets' receivers and offensive line have not come through. I think his teammates are jealous of his salary and on purpose not pulling through for him. I would like to know if you being a Jets fan and him being a Bears fan, would I be okay with trading quarterbacks? Would you, as a GM, say let's trade Fitz for Cutler? It never ceases. Raheem never ceases to amaze me with some of his thoughts. He thinks that the team is jealous of Fitzpatrick's salary and they're not coming through for him. I guess they're the reason he throws all those interceptions, lead league and interceptions. Fitzpatrick, let me just tell you this, Raheem. First and foremost, I know Jay Cutler's not a leader and he's had his ups and downs, but I would take Jay Cutler for Ryan Fitzpatrick in a half a second. And even though I don't think that Jay Cutler is going to be around in the NFL much longer because he's not a team leader and a quarterback has to be a team leader, Ryan Fitzpatrick is the worst quarterback I have seen in a long, long time. You don't go to 7 different teams or 6 different teams, whatever, averaging 2 years a team if you're good. All right, he may have the smarts because he's an intelligent guy. He just doesn't have the talent. I think that me as a lifelong Jet fan, and have endured many, many suffering years since they won the Super Bowl, which I got to see as a kid. I have never disliked a quarterback and a coach for the New York Jets as much as I dislike Ryan Fitzpatrick and Bowles. So I say this to you, Raheem. If you got any juice and you can make it happen, because I never want to see Ryan Fitzpatrick in the green and white again. Can you believe that, Sal? My goodness.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know. He tries to. I'm sure in his own level he tries to do his best and everything else. I don't think any athlete on that top-notch stage would purposely not perform at the level he's geared and he can sustain, but maybe it's just not in his makeup. I don't know.
Well, maybe he wears makeup. I don't know.
Maybe.
But the bottom.
Remember when Joe Namath wore pantyhose? Remember that?
That's right, but he got paid for that. But anyway, and he still wears the big coat too. But
yeah, he does.
The fur coat. But he's just terrible. And a guy to demand. It's just like we were talking about earlier. Here's a guy who gets $12 million for the year. And he's playing like, a Pop Warner quarter. I can't stand him. Please, I don't even want to go. Let's go to the next email. This one is from our buddy Chris in Canada. He says, Oscar De La Hoya's financial offer to Billy Joe Saunders to fight Canelo Alvarez is now officially been cut in half. What are you and Sal's thoughts on a poor performance against a so-called tune-up fighter? He's referring to Billy Joe Saunders' last performance last week. I never thought that Billy Joe Saunders was anything special, Sal. And the only reason that Saul Canelo Alvarez will fight him is because Billy Joe Saunders happens to have a belt. And Team Alvarez knows that if they win a belt, regardless of who they won it from, it gives them some bargaining and leverage with Triple G if he ever has the balls to fight him. So Billy Joe Saunders I never looked at him as a quality fighter. Did you?
No, I did not. He's got a belt, but then again, look at the belts that are available today.
I got a belt too.
38 waist to 30. I'm teasing.
That's what I say. I got a belt too.
You got a belt too.
I mean, we got belts. I was looking at a press release this morning. This kid, he's 18 years old, and he's got a handful of fights, and he's saying he'll fight Conor McGregor, et cetera, et cetera. And they show a picture of him, and he's got like 9 belts he's holding up. And I'm saying to myself, here's a kid that just turned pro. He's already got 9 belts.
It's so watered down today, Bill. It really, when I was making my comeback, and you and John were, supportive, and until I ripped my rotator cuff. I didn't know you needed one to fight, but I guess you do. And
you need 2. You need 2 of them.
I'll tell you. And I wanted to fight for a belt, and there was the talk of how I would have maybe 5 fights, and maybe by my fifth fight, I could get back into some type of title contention and get a belt. But you guys were also doing it with your eyes rolled, saying like, do you know how watered down the system is today, and those belts are so available? And like I said, I was Rip Van Winkle of boxing. I went to sleep for 25 years. I woke up, and here's another game.
Well, here's the thing. It would have been interesting to follow, but at the end of the day, you're still 140 years old, so you got to stop that talk. But
Hey, easy. I know.
anyway,
I
we
know.
got we
I
got
know.
another
Don't
couple.
get me excited. I'll get the surgery and be back tomorrow.
I know. We got another 2 emails to go through. This one's from
Okay.
my man Ryan with more MMA discussion. If you recall, he sent us a long email last week, or maybe it was beginning of this week, saying, hey, the MMA ain't all cracked up, ain't perfect, basically. And he says, I just want to clarify a little more what I said about the government and MMA. Government doesn't own UFC or anything like that. I was just saying, referring to the Athletic Commission and the slow process of change compared to what you see overseas with overseas MMA organizations. There's less regulation over there, and the rules are basically decided by the people who own the league. There's an MMA event in Singapore that had a weird rule kicking a downed opponent. If you knock somebody down in a fight, you can kick them. But you had to wait on the referee to shout that it was okay to kick them. It sounds good in theory.
It's like getting the schoolyard bully and saying, hey, can I kick the kid now?
Yeah, shall I throw some sand in his face first? He says it's good in theory to protect a hurt fighter from getting soccer kicked, but fights are too fast-paced, and it led to a problem where somebody got disqualified. The very next day, the CEO announced that they were changing the rule. It's just a little frustrating for fans who sometimes see stupid things happening, and the president of the UFC can do is agree with them and say there's more he wishes he could do. I'm not so sure how much influence the UFC can have with getting the ABC and these athletic commissions to change things. That's probably something you know more about. The ABC voted this year to make quite a few rule changes to the unified rules that I'm excited about, but there's still a long way to go. There's still some strange rules, like you can't throw a 12 to 6 elbow. All elbow strikes are illegal except for an elbow that is thrown in a downward trajectory. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it. Nobody likes it. John Jones is one of the best fighters the UFC has, and the only loss on his record is a DQ from throwing a 12 to 6 elbow in a fight he was clearly winning. The only loss on the record of a possible all-time great is a DQ from a rule nobody wants to exist. I like MMA a lot. I just don't think what we see currently in the UFC is the best possible version of it. I don't think the Wild Wild West, anything goes version of it over in Japan was good either. I wasn't really a fan of the 90s UFC, so I definitely don't want to go back to what they were before getting banned. Most of the unified rules here in the States were written at the time, even when fighters and coaches didn't fully understand MMA. I know there's been a lot of evolution of the rules in boxing and every other sport over the years, but I've never followed any of these sports from the beginning, so I don't have to go through the growing pains with them. Listen, just to clarify, the commissions, the way an athletic commission works, and it does blanket boxing, MMA, and even wrestling, is from state to state. So the rules do vary from state to state. It's not run by the feds. A lot of people feel that the federal government should step in and oversee the state commissions. They do have the ABC, which is supposed to be an organization, a neutral organization that kind of gets everybody to play nice. Now, the thing is you don't have to belong, to the ABC, which brings us to a whole nother ball game. The ABC really doesn't do anything except, I'm not sure what the ABC does anymore, because they come up with rules and you can or don't have to follow them. I don't know what we need anymore, to be honest with you, but it would be nice to have everybody playing with the same rules like every other sport. So I get what my man's saying about MMA. Basically, with his emails that he sent to us, Sally's saying, hey, we're complaining about boxing, and we look at MMA, and it seems that everything's going great, specifically with the UFC. And my man Ryan is saying, "Hey, nay." So one more email, and this one's from our man Coach. Love getting
Coach, all right,
emails.
Coach.
He says
good emails.
He says boxing
way.
continues to shoot itself in the foot, and to anyone who's paying attention, one major signing is that Top Rank just signed Joseph Parker just ahead of his fight with their fighter Andy Ruiz, which has the fastest hands in boxing, according to Bob Arum. What's your thoughts? And then he says, oh, by the way, Smith Jr. will beat Bernard Hopkins by knockout. We'll talk about that next week as the fight's coming up. But, we kind of started the show with this topic a little bit. And as we get ready to go to break here, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, Top Rank signing a fighter that's fighting his guy. I mean, is that any strong messages you're looking at, or just a business move?
Well, it's crazy because, I go back and I refer it all along, and you've heard me say this a dozen times, not that I'm promoting his book, but I promote your book, Billy. But, who was it? Teddy Brenner, who worked for Bob Arum, wrote that book back in the 80s. Only the ring was square. And that's it. I mean, even at the time when I fought Louis Lamilli, he was signed by Duva, or was in bed with the Duvas in main events. And yet he was going to go after Whitaker's title, but we were doing a title elimination fight to see who was going to fight Whitaker. So it's not the first time, it's not the last time where a promoter will sign two top fighters in the same weight division that ultimately compete against each other, and it's just cornering the market, and the legalities and everything else around it. It's all done in such a way that it's on the up on some level, but it's ethically or whatever. Hey, it's business. It's business. Boxing is a business.
Yeah, I'm looking.
So it crosses the line of a lot of righteousness or moral compasses.
I'm looking
as a business.
I'm looking in the chat room here, and a guy by the handle of Wow wants to know why I'm so high on all the old boxers. Almost all of them were full of PEDs, and Holyfield was one of them. I don't really look at Holyfield as an old boxer. I mean, he came during an era when I felt that boxing was already on the downslide. As far as PEDs, he never tested positive. I do believe he was on them in the beginning, but they weren't banned at the time. We didn't know enough about them, and subsequently they were banned. That's just my opinion. He was never caught using them. So, but Wow is a big fan of Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller is a fraud. I hate to burst your bubble there, Wow, but Jarrell Miller's a bum, and he's predicting that he's going to fight AJ early next year. Anthony Joshua will destroy Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller doesn't deserve a shot with Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, the fights he's got stacked up right now, assuming he wins this weekend, he could easily he's going to be fighting Klitschko. David Haye is going to end up fighting him. Guaranteed, David Haye is going to end up fighting AJ. And don't be surprised if they make the deal with Deontay Wilder. I mean, listen, Jarrell Miller is down on the priority list, and he's a bum. He's a bum. Literally, he's a bum. And as soon as he fights a real fight, he will get knocked the F out. I mean, it's that simple. I've been in this business for a long, long time, and I know talent. And let me tell you, Jarrell Miller doesn't have it. He's, they're saying how athletic he is and everything else. He's a big fat pig is what he is. He's not much different than Andy Ruiz, and he hasn't fought anyone to even show us any talent. So anybody looks good hitting a heavy bag, right, Sal?
Absolutely. I mean, the bag doesn't punch back. It may swing back at you, but, no, you could look good hitting a bag, a speed bag. You can make it sing, dance, bang, boom. But, it's a different story when you're in the ring. And we know that.
Yeah,
a lot of other variables come into play, and the bag's not there for you to beat up.
Right, exactly. But anyway. Hey, Sal, we look forward to you tomorrow. And as everyone knows, we will be doing a show tomorrow. We will not be back until next week after that. And then next week we'll announce our holiday schedule, and we'll get ready to kick off 2017 with some major changes here on the show. I'm excited, and you and I will chat about that later in the week.
Definitely. Hey, Bill, I just want to say before I do go, I saw a picture of your face whenever I make an analogy the other day. And I don't know if you saw it from Dax, but, whenever I make my analogies. But I see $1 million analogy that Coach made in the chat room, and I think it's a brilliant one. We're talking about fighters and cornering the market with promoters owning both fighters or signing them both. And Coach says here, imagine Steinbrenner buying the Red Sox at the same time he owned the Yankees. That's a hell of an analogy. It's good.
What face are you talking about?
Oh, you didn't see it?
No.
Oh, it was great. See, you go. It was a couple days back after I gave you one of my analogies or stories.
Yeah.
And Dax took a picture of your face during the show of what you look like when I say I got an analogy. and your face was like, oh my God, what is he gonna say now?
Hey, slip, Mahoney.
It was like surprise. It was funny. Got a lot of hits, a lot of takes, and Dax tagged it like Billy's face when Sal says he's got an analogy.
That's funny. You
gotta see it.
Hey, Sal, we'll talk later, my man.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
That's my man, Sal Rocky Senecola. Listen, I'm going to take a short break. We're scheduled to have Larry Hazard join us up next.
The Billy C. Morning Show will be right back.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C. first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to the Billy C. Morning Show. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to the Billy C. Morning Show. Glad you could be with us. And speaking of being with us, joining us right now is Boxing Hall of Famer and New Jersey Boxing Commissioner Larry Hazard. What's up, Larry? Larry, are you there? We must have lost Larry. Let me try and get Larry back. You never know. Sometimes these technology issues happen, and we'll see what happens. See if we can't get Larry back on the line here, and we don't want to miss out on Larry. Get his thoughts on some of the things that's going on right now, and some of the comical things going on right now. Is we're actually discussing Jarrell Miller in the chat room, which I find pretty humorous. Jarrell Miller has kind of gotten onto the scene here in recent times, not too long ago. But anyway, we're having a rough time getting a hold of Larry, so maybe we'll try him a little bit later. But in any event, Jarrell Miller, we're discussing in the chat room, and if you recall, Jarrell Miller really just got on the scene. But we got somebody on the line right now. I think it's Sal Rocky Senecola.
Hey, I'm back.
Hey, you're back. I can't get a hold of Larry. I figured, hey,
I'm making another comeback.
I guess if you got some time, we'll keep you around. While we discuss some of this other stuff. You got extra time or what?
I sure do. I do for you guys. I love this show.
Well, the funny thing is we're in this conversation in the chat room about Jarrell Miller, and you remember who he is, right?
Oh yeah,
Jarrell Miller, the heavyweight. He hasn't fought anybody.
Nobody.
And he's shooting off his mouth. He wants to fight this guy. That's how people get known today. But the sad truth is this: he's the heavyweight division. When we take a look at the heavyweight division, who do we got? I look at our rankings were just updated this morning, and I look at our rankings, and although we still have Tyson Fury at number 1 because he hasn't been out of the ring for a year, even though it looks like he will. We got Klitschko at number 2, Povetkin at number 3, Luis Ortiz at number 4, Deontay Wilder at number 5, Anthony Joshua at number 6. And these are our rankings. This isn't who I personally feel are the best heavyweights. No. Kubrat Pulev is number 7. V. Glazkov, who we haven't heard from in a while, he's number 8. Spitzka, number 9. Bryant Jennings, number 10. When you look at these guys, we got Lucas Brown at 11, Parker at 12, Charles Martin at 13, Andrei Fedosov at 14, and Ruslan Shagayev at number 15 to round out our top 15. Now, some of the fighters that are fighting this weekend, you got, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, Dillian White, who's fighting Derek Chisora. He's ranked on our rankings, number 21. And Andy Ruiz Jr., he's ranked at number 22, and he's taken on a guy that we have ranked at number 12. The joke of it all, and as far as Jarrell Miller, I don't even know where we have him. Jarrell Miller is way down on our list, rightfully so. When you take a look at these heavyweights, Sal, and we're talking about Evander Holyfield earlier, being inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. When I said we're never going to have another Evander Holyfield, I'm not even exaggerating, right?
Well, and that's the whole thing. We look at, and I use the term, boxing reboots itself and everything else here. We've used that before. You used that before. And, the heavyweight division. Well, you remember the heavyweights of the 70s. They any one of those top contenders that fought could have been champion in any other era if they got past Holmes, Ali. It was just a different era. Same thing happened in the 80s with the and 90s with Holyfield. And, and now we're looking at the mix of heavyweights in this generation today. And, I think Anthony Joshua is one of the shining stars, and hopefully he's going to be able to sustain this excitement and level of competition. But who else is out there? Klitschko's a warrior when he gets a chance to shine. We just don't hear too much about him. And there's other great heavyweights out there. Oh, we got to give. I know you don't like to, but Deontay Wilder, at least he could try to step in the ring with one of these great guys, and let's see what he really is made out of. But, it's not the same, Billy. It's not the same mix. It's not the same crop of heavyweights that any one of the top 5 or 10 heavyweights today could be champion. It's not that same analogy.
No,
It's weak. It's weak. It's watered down. It's you don't have you can name maybe the top 3 or 4, but that's about it.
well, the problem is they don't fight each other.
No, they don't fight
we
each
got
other.
somebody in
That's the promoters and everybody else because they want to protect these fighters. They want to, or they just want to ride them as long as they can on the horse to keep them winning with that belt that they have for the month or whatever the heck.
and the people that are getting screwed are the fans because they're getting dealt an inferior product. You see, we just got questioned. When I just was reading our rankings. I just got questioned in chat room. Oh, what do you mean Joseph Parker is number 12, blah, blah, blah. Well, you got to remember, when we do our rankings, we don't have a champion, and we rate who we feel are the top fighters, top 10, and then we go on to post 5 more. So we literally have the top 15 of the division. And it's based on the guy who beat the guy. And we don't pull a guy out of the rankings until he's been out of boxing, not active for 1 year. I used to be on the ring panel, the ring ratings panel, and that was the rule that they used to follow, the guy who beat the guy, and I like that rule. So when you look at our rankings and you see a guy like Glazkov in there, that's because he beat a guy at the time who was in our top 10, and that was, I believe, Tomas Adamek. The guys get in there. You can't just remove a fighter or replace him with someone else because that other person is fighting bums like an Andy Ruiz. He's not even in my top 15. Now, when you look at other sanctioning bodies, this is where it all gets skewed, Sal, because the sanctioning bodies, they have a guy ranked at number 1 who's not ranked in any other sanctioning body. So now you can say, oh, well, our guy is ranked like Andy Ruiz, for example, and Joseph Parker are both ranked very high in the IBF or whatever sanctioning body they are, 1 and 2 or whatever, 1 and 3. But when you put them all together and you rank these guys as really the best, how can you put Joseph Parker above any of the guys that are in our top 10? With maybe the argument of Glazkov. I don't believe Glazkov is a top 10 guy, but he did beat a guy to get there.
He did.
So I mean, I don't know. But listen, coming up this weekend, which we'll talk a lot more about tomorrow, we do have a heavyweight fighting that I feel is one of the best out there today, Anthony Joshua. He is taking on Eric Molina, who shouldn't be a tough fight for him at all, although Eric Molina gave Deontay Wilder all kinds of trouble for 8 or 9 rounds. How do you see this fight going? I know you will have a better chance to discuss it tomorrow in detail, but he's fighting this weekend. Do you think Anthony Joshua is going to have any trouble with Eric Molina?
No, I really don't. I think he's going to go out there. Joshua, like I said, unless he proves me wrong, I think he's one of the finest out there today. He's well schooled, and he's still humble enough to say he's learning, but he's still capable enough to be dangerous with any opponent in the ring that they can give them, because he has the fundamentals down. He's a solid, accomplished, experienced young fighter, and he has the basics. He has the foundation of letting his hands stay his feet in the pocket and letting his hands flow. He understands the basics, the mechanics of boxing, and I think he's going to be dangerous for a long, long period of time. And I like this guy. I really do. He comes to fight. He's conditioned, and he could do the job against anybody.
The only weakness
I like him. So I think he shouldn't have no problem getting past and winning this fight.
The only weakness that I guess he displays is possibly his chin. He has hit the canvas before, but we'll see.
Flash knockdowns happen. You could get knocked down and not be hurt. It's just a flash. You remember the old term growing up or the young days you heard, oh, you hit him right on a button. You hit the guy on a button. And you can get hit without being hurt, and there's like a part or some location in your jaw, maybe when it gets knocked in, and you knock the equilibrium off, and boom, you're not hurt. You have all your faculties, you're ready to go, but boom, you can get a flash knockdown. And so that might happen with him once in a while, but we haven't seen him really, really hurt and coming back. That's the one test we're going to have to see if a fighter can do that and he comes back. That's part of the qualities of a real champion, a real heart, and a real determination.
You know, a real champion like the real deal, Evander Holyfield, getting inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. You know, he was a guy, I got to see him live several times in championship fights and then, you know, in later years. I saw John Ruiz fight in Connecticut, and you know, I had also the opportunity to meet him and hang out with him for a little bit in Denmark, and he's not the nicest guy you want to meet.
No.
He really isn't. But man, the fight that sticks out the most in my mind with Evander Holyfield and the display of his recuperative powers was his fight against George Foreman. George Foreman, and I remember watching this in a crowded bar, and they had it was a pay-per-view, I guess, and they had it up on the screen. And I came in, I was running late, and I came in just as the fight started. I missed the undercard, and I was watching it. And, you know, I was rooting for Foreman. And Foreman had Evander in all kinds of trouble. As a matter of fact, he hit him with a shot, Sal, that I remember, that sent Evander Holyfield backpedaling all the way across the ring. And if the ropes weren't there, I mean, technically, they should have called it a knockdown.
Yes.
And he was in all kinds of trouble.
I remember.
He stumbled backwards and just kind of crashed into the ropes and was just laying on the ropes. And the time it took George Foreman to plod his fat ass across the ring, all he had to do was land one more shot, and Evander Holyfield was out cold. The second or two it took him to plod across that ring to nail him with that last shot, Evander Holyfield recovered enough to just, hang in there, and then unleashes a barrage of an attack to Foreman of his own that was just mind-boggling. I just said to myself, how does a guy recover that quickly from the bombs that he was taking from Foreman in that fight? And from that point on, I said to myself, oh man, this guy, I've never seen anybody recover like him.
No, he like you said, call it muscle memory, call it determination, call it will, call it heart. Remember, heart. And you have a heart of a champion. You have a mindset of a champion. You just don't give up. As long as you have the clarity, as long as you can, it's like your body is on autopilot. And unfortunately, that's also some of the damages that fighters pay for later in life. But when you're that young warrior and you don't think about those things, because all you're thinking about is winning. And all you're thinking about is, hey, you can hit me with a damn sledgehammer. It's not going to matter because I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep coming forward. And you can keep swinging that hammer at me, but I'm going to get through that hammer and I'm going to get you with my shots. That's a fight. That's a heart. That's a winner. And that's Evander.
That's why I just don't think that boxing could ever produce another Evander Holyfield ever, because that mentality isn't there anymore, Sal.
Billy, let me tell you something.
That kill or
kill or
be killed
level.
isn't there anymore. You know what I mean? Kill or be killed, or
No.
Win at all costs. I mean, now a fighter feels like he can't win and he quits. A fighter doesn't want to fight anybody because he's got an O, or a guy says, "Oh, I don't want to fight the garbage man. I don't want to fight the taxi cab driver, not unless you pay me $5 million." That mentality is gone. The fight, hey, just put somebody in front of me, I'll knock him out mentality is gone, man. I mean, fighters fight safety. That's all they care about. It's never going to be the same. This sport will never be the same, and maybe it's time for it to go away. I don't know. No.
It won't go away, and it can't go away. But you know what? And every time you say something about the fighter that we bring up from time to time, and I try to take a positive stance about him. And we're talking about Floyd Mayweather, and you know, and you say how your stance is, and your observation and your opinion is how he's ruined the game, and how he's brainwashed fans. And I try to say, I can appreciate his talent and his ability, and what he's done in the game of boxing, of course, for himself. And he's not my kind of fighter, but I do give him credit for doing what he's done to a level of where he's accomplished what he has underneath his belts. But it was never so evident. And if your ears were ringing, the other night in my restaurant, we had these two gentlemen. They were great guys, great guys. First time they came in, and they looked at all the pictures on the wall, boxing, and I got Roberto Duran, I got Aaron Pryor, and all the old ones, Bobby Ches, and so we're all talking about fighting. These are big fight fans, and the younger of the two gentlemen started going on saying, "Yeah, but there's not going to be anybody else like Floyd Mayweather. He's the best, and all this and all that." And I was like, "Oh shoot, what are we going to do now?" And he said, "Oh, Floyd does this, he does that great, he does it." I said, "Oh my gosh." And I tried to say, well, I got to give credit to where credit's due for Floyd. But the truth of the matter is, and I started bringing up analogies, started bringing out this. I didn't want to beat the guy up and tell him how I really think about Floyd Mayweather, what he has done to boxing. But I thought of you, Billy, because here you said, was right before my very eyes, a fan that was drinking the Kool-Aid and brainwashed into believing that Floyd's style and Floyd's way is the best way. And I said, "Oh my gosh, there it is right there, the proof of what Billy says."
Well, the sad thing about that, and first of all, you got to give Floyd credit for doing what he did, and although I blame him for everybody trying to copy him, they're copying him because he still seemingly has all his faculties intact. He's got all this money, etc.
We'll see what happens later.
Well, nobody's hit him. I mean, because he runs. He's a runner. The thing is that from Floyd's point of view, Floyd did the best thing for Floyd, and fighters want to copy that, and they want to do the best for them. What the price that has been paid is the sport has taken a shot. And for a fan to say, "Oh, Floyd's the best," well, when fans say that to me, I say this. I say, "Why? Why do you feel that Floyd is the best, of today?" And the answers are always the same. They say he's never lost, and they say he makes a lot of money. And then the only other comment that, and it's these only three. The only other comment is people say, "Oh, you can't hit him." Now, yes, he makes a lot of money, and that you got to give him credit for. Yes, he's undefeated, but he's carefully picked for the last decade at least. He's carefully picked fighters that he knows he has a 90% chance of winning or better. And he doesn't get hit because he's not in range. He's not in range to hit his opponent either. It's not like he's standing in front of his opponent and they can't hit him, like we see with a guy like Guillermo Rigondeaux and some other great fighters that we've talked about in terms of even Lomachenko recently. When you're standing in front of a fighter and you can't hit him, but he's hitting you, that is the sweet science. So the fans are just jumping on the bandwagon. I think a lot of fans jumped on the Mayweather bandwagon because everyone likes to follow a winner, and Floyd is undefeated. If Floyd loses a fight, you're going to see a lot of these people, crucify Floyd. Floyd will never be on the pedestal. That's why the O is so important to him. But the price that the sport has paid for Floyd's benefit is that we may be in a situation that's irreversible in terms of what we have. I always ask fans that tell me Floyd is the best, I ask them one question. What is a memorable fight? When you think of Floyd Mayweather, what fight pops in your mind that you can say was such a memorable fight?
Wow.
And
So true.
But the thing is it might be memorable for the wrong reason. You know, Mayweather Pacquiao pops in mind because it was so anticlimactic. But when you at the end of the day, what fight pops in mind? You mentioned newly elected Hall of Famer Evander Holyfield. You mentioned his name, and how many fights pop into your head?
How many fights? I could see the battles, the wars, this and that, him picking himself up and everything else and coming back. And, that's the whole thing. That's the fighter. I remember when Evander Holyfield was fighting in the amateurs. That's how far back when he fought middleweight or light heavyweight and won the Olympic gold. And no, he won a silver, I think, didn't he? No. But he
won a bronze. He won the bronze.
He won a silver medal, I think.
Silver? I thought he won a bronze, but
I think
either way, he didn't win the gold.
But what I'm saying is, I remember, if I can, way back when, and I'm gonna say this, when Evander Holyfield was lighter, and maybe Alex or somebody else can give me this trivia, because I was training in a gym with Costello's at one time, which was a local gym in Patterson, New Jersey, and I think Tony Aiello Jr. Not Tony. Yeah, Tony. Is that his name? Who was in prison and all this? He was one of the Duva's rising stars.
Yeah, Tony Aiello. He came back. He ended up getting in trouble.
I think he knocked down Evander or beat Evander in a national Golden Glove or national AAU championship as an amateur, I believe. And bronze. And coach did say that you are correct that Holyfield won a bronze. I thought it was a silver, but
yeah, he won a bronze, and then they complained that he was robbed, and I guess. He hadn't lost since that fight, but anyway,
Find that out. If Tony Aiello, I thought I saw on Wild World of Sports 100 years ago that Tony Aiello beat Evander Holyfield in the amateurs. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'd like to see that.
Well, that Tony Aiello he did, 15, 20 years for rape. He gets out.
Yeah,
he gets his career back. He picks up his career. And then he got thrown back in a can for the same thing. It's almost disease-ish, but
I know. I'm going to tell you my analogy one day and see your eyes roll about the story of a frog and a scorpion. Okay.
Yeah, I'm almost ready. I'm almost ready to have you tell me now, but unfortunately, or maybe unfortunately, we're out of time, Sal.
How convenient.
So I'm going to take a break, and we're scheduled to have Alex come on and do our blast from the past next. You know who our blast is on today? Jimmy Wilder. What a great little fighter he was, huh?
No relation to Gene.
No, Wild, not Wilder. Wilde.
I'm teasing. So, I know, Bill. I'm just playing on it.
Hey, Sal, I appreciate you stepping up to the plate here and coming back on when you were probably getting ready to go enjoy the sun. But I will tell everyone, you did offer to come up here and shovel snow because you miss it so much. And I say this, come on up.
Cold, I missed the snow. I missed the Northeast. And you know what? I'll fly up there and shovel your driveway any day.
Tell you what, come on up now. We got some snow here for you. So come on up. Come on up. And I guarantee you get out of the car, you start shoveling, and you say to yourself, you know what, St. Simon's is a nice place to live. You don't get this kind of weather, but I'm still waiting to come down there and hang with you on a regular basis. So,
well, we're going to talk about that later. You're going to talk about some things coming up for next year. We'll pinpoint a couple fights we want to do down here.
Sounds good. I was going through some stuff. The last time we did our busiest year was not this year. It was last year. 2015.
It was last year, and I think the fight we closed out with was the fight with Triple G and oh gosh, who was it? He was undefeated.
Are you talking about Willie Monroe Jr.?
No, we did the Triple G fight against Lemieux.
Oh, David Lemieux. Oh, we did that fight down there. Okay, all right.
I think we did. Yeah, we did. It was a big night for all of us. Yeah, it was a good fight.
Huh. Well, listen, my man.
Lemieux got knocked out. Yeah.
We'll be looking forward to chatting again tomorrow, and we'll talk later.
Same bad time. You got it, pal.
All right, man. I'll talk to you. Have a good one.
Later.
Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, the Blast from the Past is scheduled. I'll be back in 2.
The Billy C. Morning Show will be right back.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time
boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out their ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Beat Joe Lewis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh? What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to the Billy C. Morning Show. Glad you could be with us. Don't forget, I want to give a special shout out to all of our listeners on ESPN New Hampshire, all my buddies over there. Glad we could be with you this morning. And don't forget, check us out on Fight TV. And not only can you watch us there on a daily basis or whenever you want, because they put our show up on demand as well, you can watch us on your handheld. That's right. Now you can take us wherever you go and watch us wherever you are. You remember what I say, wherever you go, there you are. So check it out. Go to www.fight.tv. That's FITE.tv/Billy C. Download the app for free and enjoy our show plus all the other shows that are on Fight TV. So, hey, it's worthwhile. And I want to tell you this. This segment coming up now has been with us for since we started our show, which we're entering our 14th year in 2017. And, it goes something like this.
Blast from the past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Top-ranking heavy. Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time. Look at that left hook. That belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by the Title Bout Championship computer game. Check it out, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the Title Bout game, which is on the left-hand side, and the KO Fantasy boxing game, which is something you should check out. Just go visit www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Features a former world champion and a boxing Hall of Famer, and kind of a freak in nature. And joining us right now to tell us all about Jimmy Wild is my man, Alex Perpali. What's up, Alex?
Good morning, Billy C. How are you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Winter's officially here for us, and
yeah, I was going to say, you guys got plenty of snow up there already, huh?
Yeah. I don't like it. I'm already. I don't like it. Okay, I don't like this stuff. We actually got our first snowstorm before Halloween, but it all melted away and stuff. And then now we're getting our typical, what we usually used to get in November, our typical couple of inches here and there, and then it just stays. It doesn't go anywhere, until the end of April probably. So it's just going to get worse and worse. Sal doesn't know what he's saying when he says, "Oh, I'll come up and shovel." Yeah, okay, come on up, But anyway, enough of my complaining. Well, enough of my bitching and moaning, Alex. Tell us about Jimmy Wild.
Yeah, Jimmy Wild. This guy is quite a badass, a little mini badass. He had some great nicknames. Nicknames were included the Mighty Atom, which is one of my favorites.
I love that.
The Ghost with a Sledgehammer, or the Ghost with a hammer in his hand, and the Tylerstown Terror. That's where he fought out of, Tylerstown in Wales. He was born May 15th, 1892, in Quakers Yard, Wales. and he was only 5 foot 2 inches tall and weighed about 108 pounds soaking wet. Often came in lighter than that, sometimes as light as 100, 105 pounds. He had a wispy, spidery build, but he could hit like a beast. And he grew up in he was a collier. That was the word I had to look up. I never saw that word before. It means a coal miner. And I guess it's a coal mining town in Wales. Merthyr Tydfil is the name of the town. And he dropped out of school at 14 years old and went into the mines. And that's where he built up his muscles. He weighed only 56 pounds. He worked in the mines for about 50 cents a day, and his small size made him ideal for moving through the narrow caverns and tunnels in there. And he built up his power by hammering away at the, to mining the coal. And he boxed larger men there in the, I wonder if they fought actually underground or if they fought, up in the yards of the coal mines. But I guess he did some boxing there, fighting. And, for pennies and stuff, they would, not pennies, I mean, it's over in the UK. But for a shilling, perhaps. And he actually also got more of his boxing experience in the boxing booths at county fairs. And there also he boxed larger men. Because of his power, he was able to, handle the bigger guys. And supposedly in one 3.5-hour session, he knocked out, this was in Bert Sugar's book, supposedly in one 3.5-hour session, he knocked out 19 men, rested for a half an hour, and then knocked out 4 more in 45 minutes. So in an hour of, in a time period of 4 hours and 45 minutes, he scored 23 KOs.
That's pretty.
Which some guys fight once a year these days.
Exactly.
Good.
When you would mention...
his style was pressuring. He would bore in on his foes with his hands held low, bobbing to and fro, winging shots from all angles with power. Really aggressive guy. Great fighter. Ibro ranks him at #1 all time at flyweight. And like I said, he is in Burt Randolph Sugar's Boxing's Greatest Fighters book at number 18.
You mentioned a couple of things I wanted to just... did you, with all the nicknames that he had, did you mention the Furious Freak?
Oh, I didn't hear that one. No,
that was another one. And the Indian Famine, which I had never heard before, was also one. But these were early on. And he started working in those mines before he quit school at 12. So imagine that, 12-year-old kid. And here's the other thing. He got married at 17. This guy seemed to grow up pretty quick. I mean, talk about not having a childhood. He quit school. He's full-time at 14, working in the mines at 12, married at 17, having fights. And they claim that he fought as many as 100 fights prior to his first one that's on his record in those fights in the mines. There was a guy that... would arrange these fights, and it would normally be on payday, where the miners got their money, and they would gamble on Jimmy Wild, and he would fight, and that's what kind of steered him towards prize fighting, where he could make more money, and he started his pro career. But they say that he had almost 100 fights. They can't back it up, but prior to 1911, they say that he fought as many as 100 times in some of those makeshift fights.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's very different from today is, not in all cases and not in all countries, because we still see guys in this sport who had very rough childhoods and, went to work, hard labor very early in their lives, and then boxing was a sort of way out of that. But that it wasn't that uncommon, I guess, for people to leave school early and then end up in a really hard labor, manual labor type job. My own great grandmother, right around this same time, left school in the 8th grade and went to work on a farm on what is now Whaley Avenue in New Haven, picking strawberries. So I mean, that was the way of things. I mean, that's a far cry from coal mining, which is brutal, dangerous work. But that idea of growing up real fast. Before the age of 20, you're married, and you have a long history of real hard labor.
You're talking about the style that he fought, and one of the things he was known for, aside from freakish power for his size, was that this guy was a defensive genius. But a lot of fighters that we've talked about from a defensive standpoint were able to, block their opponent's punches or anticipate the punch and counter before that punch lands. What Jimmy Wilde did so well, and really for the most part could be credited as a guy who utilized it, was distance. This was a guy that was able to use distance as a defensive ammunition, and he would be able to just slide one way or another to avoid an opponent's punch and then counter punch because he was still so close to the guy. And basically, it was him knowing about distance in a fight, and he was successful throughout his career. Even when his ability started to fade a little bit, there was only one fighter he came across that he couldn't get out of the way of, and that was Pancho Villa. And that's because of Pancho Villa's style just didn't give Jimmy Wilde the chance to utilize his prowess at distance. So that's something that is pretty important today, because a lot of fighters equate defensive skill to being out of reach of an opponent to hit them. But the key I've always tried to emphasize, like we saw with Vasily Lomachenko's fight last week, was that you got to still be in position to land a blow. And Jimmy Wilde certainly was. He was in a good position. As a matter of fact, he had a pretty high knockout ratio for a guy his size.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, and I think that's the thing that you guys were talking about. What makes Floyd Mayweather great, and I think that's one of the things that always made him very good, is that or great. I'll say great. Was that he knew that about being defensive, is that you, and Jimmy Wilde certainly was the same way, is you don't have to make a guy miss by a mile. All you have to do is make a guy miss by a couple of millimeters, and then you're still in position to land. And that's the great fighters know that, and that's because there's this incredible economy of movement and economy of energy. Is if when you make the guy miss by a mile, then you have to get back into position too. So by making him miss just by a little bit, you take the power off his punches, and you're still in position to score. And the great fighters know that, and I think that's one of the things. Even when fighters get old, they're still able to do that. If their reflexes aren't completely shot, we'll probably see some of that next weekend when Bernard Hopkins fights Joe Smith. Where you have a guy who knows that economy of movement, is that you don't really have to make a guy miss by a mile. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the thing about this guy, was that he was defensive as well as offensive, and fun to watch. This was an English referee, George Pearson, had a piece. They quoted him in the New York Times in 1919, saying how Jimmy Wilde is going to do very well here in the United States. And he said, this is from a quote from Pearson: "That man Wilde, who is a veritable pygmy in size, is a giant of strength and a piece of lightning for speed. It will be difficult for him to get suitable opponents on this side, even with the concession of 10 and 15 pounds of weight. Wilde tips the beam at 103 pounds, but he's been whipping men right and left who faced him with 116 pounds. And that was true, is that his skills made him, more of a freak, as much as, he could be freakish to look at because he was so small and skinny and just gangly, that it was the real freakishness was his power and ability.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, with the Floyd comparison, the difference with Floyd, and the part that I'm critical of Floyd, is that he's not in position to throw a punch when he avoids the punch from his opponent. Jimmy Wilde was. Lomachenko recently was. Guys that guys that are considered boring, like what's his name, Guillermo Rigondeaux. I mean, these are guys that are in position to land punches when their opponent avoids them, and that's something Jimmy Wilde did very well. My only thing about Jimmy Wilde, and I could see where young fans, if they've never heard of this guy and they punch him up, they're gonna notice something that sticks out when you look at his career. One other thing I want to point out: in his third professional fight, he fought Di Jones, who was making his pro debut. Di Jones happened to have been the father of his future wife. And Di Jones was a guy that used to teach him how to fight. I found that pretty amazing to see that they actually fought each other in a fight that went on record. But when you look at him, he fought as a pro for 12 years, from 1911 through his last fight, 1923. But you got to go all the way. I mean, when you start looking at his record, Alex, I mean, it's pretty obvious that he fought a lot of unknown fighters and a lot of inexperienced fighters. I mean, you have to wait until the latter part of his career when you start seeing, big names like, Sid Smith or Tommy Noble or Joe Simons, Tansy Lee, Zulu Kid, those kinds of names. And then, of course, at the end of his career, when he was fighting, when he was on the big stage, with Pancho Villa, Petey Herman, Frankie Mason, etc. So, I mean, he did have a lot of fights against guys that were unknown and didn't have a lot of fights. But I would assume that it was very hard to find opponents at that weight class, which they called paperweight at that time.
Yeah, if you look at some of those early fights on BoxRec, his weight is like 94 pounds in some of those bouts.
I know.
So, yeah, and he's fighting. He was considered the first flyweight champion. Today he would probably be a strawweight. There was no strawweight division. I think the first strawweight fight was in '68, was in the Olympics, and then it wasn't an actual professional division until the early '80s. And the same thing with some of the junior classes. Michael Carbajal was one of the champions at some of those lower weights. I mean, if he was fighting today, he probably would have been a 3-division champion because he would have been strawweight and then junior flyweight and flyweight champion very likely. But those divisions just plain didn't exist. And you're right. There are some some of those early fights. It must have been difficult getting opponents. In the Burt Sugar book, supposedly, he would even use his wife as a sparring partner, and even she outweighed him a little bit. Supposedly he would put her into action. He would outfit her with a breastplate, and then have a few rounds of sparring as a nightly ritual in their bedroom.
Gee.
How's that for a dysfunctional relationship?
Yeah, you sure he wasn't Irish? No, that was bad. I shouldn't have said. But the bottom line is, I found it funny that the same thing with her father. He used to fight in the bedroom. I guess that was their choice spot to spar, in the bedroom. What's up with that? What's up with that? Maybe it was the biggest room in the house. I don't know. But anyway, he was clearly a great fighter, and everyone that watched him fight, felt the same. Towards the end of his career, his best days were behind him, but he didn't really slow down until his very last 2 fights, and his last 2 fights are really against arguably the best fighters he fought, in 2 Hall of Famers, in Pete Herman and Pancho Villa.
Yeah, those were brutal losses. I did want to mention that win over Zulu Kid. That was a big one, and that was an American. Zulu Kid was a Brooklynite who went across the pond to fight Jimmy Wilde. And this from a report from I can't even read it. I tell you, when I print out these articles, sometimes some of the print is so small I have to use a magnifying glass, and I got my reading glasses on. December 19th, 1916. Both men were underweight and appeared to be in excellent condition. They fought fast and furiously. The early rounds were about even, with the young Zulu Kid the aggressor. In the 11th round, Wild sent the kid to the ropes with a strong left to the jaw. Clinging to the ropes, the American fighter took a dozen body blows and then dropped on one knee. As soon as the kid regained his feet, Wild shot a smashing right and left blows to the jaw, flooring the kid, who seconds, without waiting for the count, threw up a towel. So you can picture the relentlessness and the pressure, which was a major part of his attack.
Yeah, and he actually thought that it was a weakness to show a loss of stamina. So, he must have. I could never find anything about him being like what we call today a gym rat or somebody constantly conditioning themselves. But obviously he was. Most of his fights were scheduled for 20 rounds. The last two fights that we were talking about, and by the way, I forgot to mention, he also won a 20-round decision over Memphis Pal Moore, who was also a very, very good fighter in those days. Back in 1919, he won in the UK in London and won a 20-round decision over him. But his last two fights, the Petey Herman fight was scheduled for 20 rounds, and he was stopped in the 17th round. And his last fight was really a brutal loss to Pancho Villa, who was, at his best. There's another guy, he was one of my favorite fighters, Pancho Villa, and a guy we lost young. I mean, when you start getting off topic here, when you start thinking about a lot of these great fighters that we talk about from the historical perspective in boxing, we lost a lot of them at such a young age that it boggles your mind to think, should they have lived into their 30s even, or even 30? Pancho Villa's case, same thing with Stanley Ketchel. These are guys that, may well have fought way more than what we know today, which is still more than what they fight by today's standards.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's the thing that's pretty amazing. When you look at just the quantity of fights and just how active these guys were, that's just very different. I mean, one of the best matchups of this weekend, Jesus Cuellar versus Abner Mares. Both those guys are coming off enormous layoffs. It's been over a year since Abner Mares fought, and it's almost a year. I think it'll be within days of a year for Cuellar. So I mean, it is, and they're both guys in their prime. So it is. It's very sad to see the level of activity of today's guys in comparison. But yeah, that. I just have a little write-up here of the Memphis Pal Moore fight. This from the New York Times report of the fight. The fight was an excellent exhibition of fistic science. Wild seemed a boy besides his taller and heavier opponent, and apart from any question of international rivalry would probably have enlisted the sympathies of the gathering of this on this account. So, he looked so small that people would feel sorry for him. Toward the middle of the contest, it looked as if the little Welshman's backers might lose their money, for Wild was receiving heavy punishment, and it was a question whether he would be able to last. He stuck gamely to his job, however, and in the later rounds more than recovered his lost ground. His aggressive work disappointed his admirers, some of whom said they had never seen him miss so many blows. From a spectacular point of view, Wild's was much superior fighting, and there was no quarrel with the decision announced by referee Eugene Corey. In the 14th round, Moore sent a jab to Wild's mouth, which made the blood spurt. It was evident in the last rounds that Moore was trying for a knockout, but Wild's ringcraft and cleverness prevented the American from carrying out his plan. So yeah, he could, as much as he was powerful, he could definitely box and had a lot of science behind his skill. And one of the things that was interesting too was General Pershing and a couple of other American officers attended that fight in London. The Memphis Pal Moore fight. And I should mention that he did join the war effort in World War I in 1917 after 3 tries. And this, you mentioned, Bill, that he was was he a gym rat, or that question of a gym rat. I wonder, it was interesting because he had a bad leg from an injury in the coal mine, and it took him 3 tries to get certified, to become enlisted as Class B1 and inducted into the Army. and because of that leg injury, and then on the second try, he was just playing too small. But he finally did get accepted and mainly served as garrison duty. Must have been close to home, because if you look at his record, there really is not an interruption in his professional career.
When you look at his record, that's a great segue. This guy fought so often, and you talk about the Mares Cuellar fight this weekend. One of his longest layoffs was right after that Memphis Palmore fight. He didn't fight Jackie Sharkey for 5 months. And that was like a long layoff. You have to go all the way to the end of his career after the Patsy Wallace fight in 1920. He went 8 months before he fought Petey Herman in January of 21. And then the longest layoff of his career, it was sort of a semi-retirement, which was almost 2 years before he fought Pancho Villa, when he got that opportunity to come to the Polo Grounds in New York to fight Pancho Villa one more shot. At getting back to title contention, but that was ultimately his last fight. And Pancho Villa at the time, 60 wins, 3 losses, and 3 draws. And we have talked about him in the past, and he was just overwhelming for Wild. And to consider all the fights that he only had 3 knockout losses. 2 of them were his last 2 fights, and really one was a knockout, and that was against Pancho Villa. The other 2 TKOs.
Yeah, and I guess that the beating in the Pete Herman fight might have been. One of the articles I read said he never really recovered. He was never really the same after that loss, and that he was lured out of retirement mainly for the money. He made £13,000 for that fight with Pancho Villa, but Villa was 10 years younger than him and just faster. And, you're talking about one of the best flyweights of all time versus probably the best Asian fighter of all time, before a guy named Manny Pacquiao came around. I think maybe you could make the argument that Pacquiao has eclipsed Villa in some ways. But, Villa was just quicker than him, and, and again, he was... he gave all he can. He was very game. His eyes were shut just about, and he, but it has been a somewhat close fight going up until the 6th or 7th round, and then in the 7th is where he gets knocked out, and he eats a right to the jaw, and Wild fell on his face in a neutral corner, and no count was even necessary. His cornerman came in and rescued him.
And he was only like 30, right, for that fight?
Yeah, he was only 31. By today's standards, that's young.
It's a baby, yeah. Unbelievable. What a career he had, and Petey Herman, TKO loss, Pancho Villa, the knockout loss in his last fight, and the only other guy was Tansy Lee, gave him a TKO loss too. So all of his fights that he had, a total of 151, only 3 losses, in which he was stopped all 3 times. So pretty amazing when you look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway,
he lived, to 76 years old, and this is pretty sad. His last few years he was really debilitated because he had been mugged. He survived a brutal mugging at Cardiff Station, the train station there in I think it's in Wales, and he survived the beating, but I guess he was in rough shape for the last 4 years or so of his life, and he finally died in hospital at 76.
Yeah, he was beat up by a gang of people. It wasn't just one guy. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and according to the reports I had, he never left the hospital after that beating. He was pretty much in care for the next 4 years of his life before he passed away, which is extremely sad because Jimmy Wild did very well financially. He did not waste his money. He was in good financial shape, which was extremely rare, especially in his era. But he did well. He was smart with his ring earnings, and it's unfortunate the way his life came to an end.
Yeah, he probably didn't want to go back to those coal mines, so he saved his money.
You know what? Maybe the coal mines, exactly. Maybe the coal mines made him be a little frugal. But Jimmy Wilde, a lot of people say, one of the greatest fighters ever to put on a pair of gloves. And after you look at his stats, it would be hard to disagree with him, right?
It's true.
Who did you put him in with?
Well, I put him in today. You know, like I said, I think that he would have been a multi-division champion. There's a lot of good guys down in the area where he fought. At 105 pounds, I put him in against knockout CP Freshmart, whose Thai name is something I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but that's the nickname that, I don't know if people have noticed this, but on BoxRec, they've taken to using the, I guess these are the Thai names of some of these fighters, rather than like the nicknames that they're using, their ring names, and it's made it a little bit difficult to find some of these guys' records. But knockout CP Freshmart, I had him fight him first, and the first time they fight, Jimmy Wilde knocked him out in 8 rounds at 1 minute 42 seconds of the 8th. When they fight 100 times, Wilde gets the better of him. He goes 86 wins, 13 defeats, 1 draw, with 68 knockouts. And of his 13 wins, Freshmart scored 9 KOs. And then also at one of those below flyweight weights that exist today, I had him fight John Riel Casimero, who's another really good fighter. And the first time they fought, Wilde wins by knockout in the 7th round at 2 minutes 57 seconds. When they fight 100 times, Wilde dominates. 89 victories, 8 defeats, 3 losses. He scored 72 knockouts. And Casimero, in his 8 wins, scored 7 knockouts. And then I had to put him in against the best flyweight of today, who actually might be moving. I think he might have even moved up from flyweight actually now. But, of course, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. And I think that would have been a really fascinating match. And it does prove the old adage that Mike Tyson liked to say, fighters don't get worse, they get better. Chocolatito did get the better of him. The first time they fought, Jimmy Wilde won by 4th round knockout, 157 of the 4th. He had him down once in the 3rd and then out in the 4th. But when they fight 100 times, Jimmy Wilde only wins 39 wins, 58 losses, 3 draws. He scored 17 knockouts, and of his 58 wins, Chocolatito scored 45 KOs. I don't think that's too unrealistic because of the size. Chocolatito, a good, solid flyweight, and Jimmy Wilde always coming in less than that division. I mean, he would have been outweighed probably by at least 2 pounds, and even in the heaviest he ever was 110. So, Chocolatito would have been bigger than him.
Yeah, no, Chocolatito is bigger. He's actually a junior bantamweight now. In his last fight, he won that title, if you recall. Who
was that, against Quadras?
Yeah, against Carlos Quadras. And I mean, so he's moving up, and you're right. Jimmy Wilde was a small guy and would have been fighting in the lower weight class. I mean, his whole career was basically in the division in which he could fight, which was flyweight. So great job there, as usual, Alex. And Jimmy Wilde, our blast from the past today. He had a career record. He was a former world flyweight champion. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. He had a career record of 132 wins, 99 by knockout, had 3 losses in which he was stopped all 3 times, 1 legitimate knockout, the other 2 TKO stoppages. He did have a draw. He also fought during the newspaper decision era where he picked up another 7 wins and a loss. Total fights, 151 with a 66% knockout ratio. Jimmy Wilde, our blast from the past today, a great fighter. Unfortunate end for him. You never want to hear these greats check out the way he did, but great job as usual, Alex. So I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of things today. First and foremost, it was announced that Evander Holyfield is inducted into the International Hall of Fame, will be inducted in 2017. It just got me thinking today, I don't think we'll ever see another Evander Holyfield, and I'm not taking anything away from Evander Holyfield because we'll never see another Floyd. We'll never see another, any great fighter that puts a stamp in the sport. You're never going to see a duplicate. But what I meant by that is you're never going to see that kind of mentality, that warrior mentality, that do or die, a guy that never says it's over, that has to have somebody else tell him it's over, either by beating him or by having his corner stop it, or a doctor or something like that stop the fight. He would never quit, even when it looked like there was no chance for him to win. Evander Holyfield came back and won. I witnessed several times ringside with him fighting like that. I've also witnessed some snooze fest, but my thoughts is that there'll never be another Evander Holyfield because the game has changed. The sport has changed. The fans have changed. They accept what we get today. What's your thoughts on that? And, of course, his overall induction into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think you have a good point. I think that it's, especially in light of recent bouts, I think what we saw with Nicholas Walters was something that, a guy like Evander Holyfield, you would never see something like that from him. I'm not necessarily knocking Walters, but it was, a sort of tap-out victory. And, tap-out victory for Lomachenko, a tap-out for Walters and how he checked out of that fight. But, I don't necessarily knock him for it, but I tell you, you definitely give a lot more credit to the fighters like Evander Holyfield who have that never say die attitude, and I do think that is getting rarer. I think we might see it again. We might not see it in the same way that Holyfield did it so many times. Where he was able to dig deep. The loss to Michael Moorer, the guy was basically having a heart attack, from dehydration and who knows what else. That could have been steroid related. We don't really know because of the testing wasn't all that great at that time. But I think it's great that he got in. He's certainly in comparison to today's heavyweights, as much as we thought that we were going to see a nice, exciting age of heavies earlier this year, a lot of the fights sort of fizzled out. This weekend we do have a couple that hopefully will deliver on some action. But Evander Holyfield was action and greatness, which a lot of times those two things are not coupled together. But with him, they certainly were. And I think, there's just so many great performances that, like you were mentioning, the Foreman fight earlier, that was a really good fight. His fights with Bo were incredible. The fights with Tyson, as much as they were, the first one was amazing. The second one, of course, was infamous. But he was handling Mike Tyson in the second one, too. So I do think that, he certainly is a deserved Hall of Famer, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go this year, but I'd like to. In terms of Marco Antonio Barrera was one of my favorite fighters, and I always liked Johnny Tapia too. I remember when I'm really looking forward to that fight with Danny Romero that he had, and he really just completely outboxed Danny Romero, and I remember thinking that fight was going to be a lot more competitive than it was. Yeah, it's really a great class this year. It's looking forward to that. And I've always liked Barry Tompkins quite a bit, and Steve Farhood. So I'm glad about those guys too.
Yeah, it's just the whole complexion of the hall though has changed. No disrespect to anybody getting in, but it doesn't seem like it's the same. I just don't think we have the people anymore. But and I agree with you, being nice about the Walters tap out. My hang up with that is you're right, that's become more commonplace today in the sport, not unlike Evander Holyfield, and it bothers me, and especially with Nicholas Walters. Now, granted, Lomachenko was giving him a lesson in what the sweet science is, but when you're Nicholas Walters and you're known for your punching power, and you're able to knock somebody out or turn the lights off with one punch, and as long as you're not physically beaten to a point where you can't see or you can't move or anything like that, which he wasn't, why do you quit? I mean, the mentality of what I'm trying to point out with Evander Holyfield, he would have never have quit. This was a guy that just said, and when you look at a great fighter like Roberto Duran, a lot of people misunderstand that quitting. I mean, he quit. No Mas was a quit, but it wasn't because he was being pummeled. It wasn't because he was quitting. He was just frustrated because he couldn't. The game plan of Sugar Ray Leonard that night just frustrated him. I wouldn't even say that Walters was that. I think it was just like, well, I can't win, no sense going on, and I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that in this sport. Until we have a tap out rule like MMA, I got a problem with it. I'm sorry. I think that the corner should have stopped it or whatever, but he wasn't taking a beating. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I thought the round where he did give up, that was the first round where he was really getting hammered. But you're right. I think it was almost like when you're playing chess and right before you get checkmated, you maybe only have a couple of pieces left, and your king's being chased all over the board, and you realize, look, I got nothing. I can't. I'm just going to get checkmated, and you sort of just give up. That's the kind of stoppage win that I thought it was, and you're right. I mean, it's not what we're used to seeing. It's traditionally frowned upon. And you know what it made me think of is that to some degree in this sport, especially when you're a puncher, you don't know what could happen. I mean, Lomachenko could break his hand in the next round. I mean, it reminds me of when, like in football, when a running back, breaks away from the tackles and is running straight for a touchdown, and guys are chasing him, but they sort of give up chasing him. You don't know, that guy could trip. You don't want to give up. Anything could happen. That's the whole point of sport. The unpredictable could happen. It's not likely. It wasn't likely against Lomachenko, but it does make you think. Well, quitting, you're taking the whole. You're giving up your option.
Right.
So the fact that the unpredictable could happen, but
the thing that bothered me is, with knockout power like Walters had, Lomachenko. All he had to do was make one little mistake. I mean, the guy, looked phenomenal and he seems perfect, et cetera, but everybody makes a mistake every now and then. Even Floyd made several mistakes in his first fight with Marcos Maidana. But, just to throw it in like that, my whole point is Evander Holyfield never did that. And, it's going to be interesting to see in 20 years from now, some of these guys that are going to get in and, old timers like myself, what are we going to be saying? But, hey, before we run out of time, we got a couple of big fights this weekend I want to get your thoughts on. First and foremost, Anthony Joshua against Eric Molina. This seems to be a total tune-up fight. He is already in negotiations with Klitschko for early next year. He's got a lot of other opportunities that are staring him in the face. Do you think he's going to have a letdown, or you think he's just going to try to get Eric Molina out of there quickly like he should?
I hope he tries to get him out of there. I do think that, he's definitely got the skills all over him, that's for sure. And I think we probably will see an impressive Anthony Joshua win. But Molina might make it interesting for a little while. He made it interesting against Deontay Wilder. So I think maybe, I think Anthony Joshua is a more complete fighter than Wilder.
Yeah.
So I do think that that Joshua will stop him.
Yeah, I can't even compare Deontay Wilder with Anthony Joshua. I'm sorry, I can't. Anthony Joshua, although he's got less fights, he's way better than Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder literally is the elephant in the room. Everybody knows that he's been coddled and basically a fraud, except for him, and that's my biggest hang up with him, because he pounds his chest like he really believes that he's the bad. I'm dreading what his commentary is going to be like ringside, because he's going to be doing that broadcast. And
Oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be doing the broadcast with the Anthony Joshua Molina fight. I guarantee you he's going to be saying things like, he doesn't stand a chance with him, and et cetera, which is sickening. And you might as well get online, because, Anthony Joshua's in the driver's seat right now, especially if he fights and beats Vladimir Klitschko. He's going to end up fighting David Haye, although I don't think David Haye deserves a shot. He will. It's a big money fight in England, so Anthony Joshua's in the driver's seat right now in the heavyweight division. I don't care what anybody says, including Deontay Wilder. Another fight that I'm interested in seeing is Terence Crawford against John Molina, although I don't think that Molina has the tools to stand in there with Crawford. What he does have is he's shown us resilience. And as a matter of fact, in his last fight, he did box better than I've ever seen him box. And Terence Crawford has a tendency to start off slow. Do you think John Molina knows this and has prepared for this and plans to jump on Terence Crawford early in this fight?
I think Terence Crawford probably will. I think Molina will probably make it look interesting for a little bit, because you're right. Crawford starts slow and he tries to figure you out. Although I don't think there's going to be much to figure out with Molina. Some people think I've seen a couple of people saying it's going to go one round. I don't see that. I think maybe 5 or 6 before Crawford, just the speed and the skills of Crawford, take Molina out. Molina has, he's got power. Maybe he could, Gamboa was able to catch Crawford. Maybe Molina's able to catch him, but I think Crawford's gotten better. I think that's, I'm looking forward to seeing Terence Crawford, especially in an exciting victory, because his last victory, although it was impressive, it wasn't all that exciting. I do think that's one of the easier matchups to pick for the weekend. But I do think that the Joseph Parker-Andy Ruiz fight might be fun. And I think the HBO's other fight there, Mason Menard versus Raimundo Beltran, that fight could be fun to watch too.
Yeah, well, that's Mason Menard's got a lot of pressure on him. He's busted onto the scene. He's been protected in Louisiana. Now he's had a couple of fights that people saw on TV, and it's a big showcase for him against a tough fighter. I think that Joseph Parker is going to destroy Andy Ruiz, because Andy Ruiz has never fought anybody, no one. I'm appalled that he's even in this fight, that they're giving him the opportunity. Joseph Parker at least has fought his way to that
Doesn't
position.
Andy Ruiz have the fastest hands anybody's ever seen?
No, that was Bob Arum said that, but I think he was lying when he said that, and he's telling the truth today. But I just want to point out one thing about the Walters Molina fight. I'm sorry, the Crawford Molina fight. You mentioned Gamboa with Terence Crawford, and Yuriorkis Gamboa has blazing hand speed and some pop. The thing about Molina is clearly he doesn't have that hand speed, but something that he is going to bring to the ring that Terence Crawford has not had to go up against yet is his size. Molina's a big dude. I don't know how he ever makes that weight, to tell you the truth. He's a big guy, and he's got power, and he can take a punch. So I think that this is a great opportunity for Terence Crawford to be in what we call a showcase fight, that he should be able to put on display his skill set and then eventually break down John Molina. But I don't see this fight ending quickly. I think that this fight is going to go on as long as they let Molina take a beating. I think that Molina's going to start off strong, maybe even drop Terence Crawford. I don't know. I think Crawford's going to win this fight. But I think it's going to go longer than 8 rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the distance, but we'll see. But
yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the other thing about Molina is that he's got big balls. So he's going to keep trying, even if he's getting hammered. So I do think that he. I remember something he said before the fight with Provodnikov, how they expected that fight was going to be really brutal, and he mentioned how the way he fights, it's not for the squeamish. So it is one of those things where I think he's going to get hammered before he loses, and I think that Crawford's the kind of guy, despite the size that Molina might have on him. I think that Crawford's just got it so much in skill over him that he is going to beat him up.
Yeah, he could bust him up
before it's over.
Yeah, he could bust him up. It could be stopped on cuts. I mean, Crawford's got the hand speed, the accuracy, the movement. I mean, he's the full package. There's no question about that. It's just going to be interesting to see him fighting a much bigger guy who's got some strength and isn't going to go down. You know, I mean,
right.
If Crawford drops him and knocks him out, that's going to be an impressive win for Crawford, really, because Molina has been in there. And you know his losses have been stoppage losses based on him getting busted up, and he's come back. I watched him fight that fight where he was losing every round, and they said you need a knockout to win. He says, "Oh, okay," and comes out and boom, knocks out his opponent. So not that that's going to happen with Crawford, but I do think it's going to be something worth watching. And we got a lot of fights this weekend, so we'll talk more about them tomorrow, and of course. Next week, we will give our thoughts on all these fights that are scheduled. And then we got the B-Hop fight next week, and that's pretty much it for the year, right?
Yeah, it's we're going out on a high note, which is cool.
We needed it, but Alex,
we did need it.
Great job.
We had a couple of good weeks. I mean, I think that the Kovalev-Ward fight, as much as the controversy, was built in there, I think that was a nice shot in the arm for boxing, even though the pay-per-view numbers sure don't say it.
I know. Well, that just goes to show you, Andre Ward can't draw people. The only guy that thinks that Andre Ward is as big of a star as he thinks is him, and it's unfortunate. I see a lot of similarities with the Hagler-Leonard fight with that fight. I mean, it was a close fight. It was a good fight, but the wrong guy got his hand raised at the end of the night. That's all. But, it's not a robbery. You can't say a robbery because it wasn't like he battered him for 12 rounds and lost, So, anyway, Alex, great job as usual, and we'll chat again next week, brother.
All right, Billy C. Take care.
That's Alex Papali, and you can catch him doing the Blast from the Past every week. And, hey, listen, that concludes our show for today. I will leave you with this. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.